Race fans, stand by. Motorsports Madness begins after these messages.
Hi, this is Jamie McMurray here for RAD, the entertainment industry's voice for road safety. Want to make a difference? It's simple. Be responsible. Plan ahead. Designate before you celebrate. Friends don't let friends drive drunk.
Baby, you can drive my car. Yes, I'm gonna be a star.
A public service message brought to you by the U.S. Department of Transportation, RAD, the National Association of Broadcasters, and the Ad Council.
You're listening to WSPD 77.1. This is Speed77 Radio, your home for motorsports.
Keep that pedal down on the floor. Push it to the top, can't take no more. Get ahead, sends the flag game down. Be here to the last lap around. Worked all week, it's time to play. Gonna get a little bit sideways. Hey, sends the flag game down. Be here to the last lap around. Worked all week, it's time to play. Gonna get a little bit sideways.
Good evening, race fans, and welcome to another edition of Motorsports Madness here on Speed77 Radio, powered by Race Chaser Online. Tonight, we're going to break down the triple header from the NASCAR world in the windy city of Chicagoland Speedway and the implications on the championship battles that took place over the weekend. We'll have a new edition of Open Wheel Central during our show tonight with Joel Sebastianelli to talk IndyCar and F1 action, and we'll have a special segment from the sprint car world, and it all starts right now on Motorsports Madness. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Speed77 Radio. I'm Jacob Seelman, the voice of Speed77, and we're glad you're along for the ride here tonight on Motorsports Madness, your home for the weekend wrap-up from around the world of motorsports. It's been a long weekend, but I'm joined tonight by our all-star crew to get it started, as I am every week. My analysts from the round table, Tom Baker and DJ Everett. Gentlemen, first off, good evening, and we've got a lot to talk about tonight.
Hello there.
How you doing, Mr. Seelman?
I hear Boise, Idaho, and I hear Charlotte, North Carolina loud and clear, so it sounds like we are all connected once again here at the 77 round table, and that is always good news. Got a lot of news to talk about from around the world of motorsports, and Tom, I tell you what, just when we think we've seen it all, it seems like this sport of ours always finds a way to surprise us.
Isn't that the beauty of our sport? Just when you think that you know where things are going and you think things are stabilizing, instantly it changes. And, I don't know if I'd have it any other way, but definitely a lot of stuff happening on the short tracks this week, and obviously still NASCAR Chase 1 underway. A lot of stuff to talk about here. I'm excited to get started.
And DJ, I know you were down in Salt Lake City this weekend, taking in some of the motorsports action for us as well. What were your impressions from this past weekend?
Well, I tell you what, the Western Wing Sprint Car Series, I got to give them kudos. They tried on a new format, 200 laps for 360 wing sprint cars in the 3/8 mile high banked paved oval we call the Rocky Mountain Raceways. 450 lap segments, Jacob. It was a barn burner. I'll be talking about it a little bit later on in the show, but man, oh man, I'm glad I went.
It wouldn't be a weekend in motorsports if we weren't hunting the races somewhere, and we're actually going to deviate from our normal procedure and start with some short track action here tonight to start off the Motorsports Madness hour. And Tom, I know you and I were both taking in some of the short track action from this weekend as well, and I know you were race chasing as you always are. What have you got to start us off here tonight?
Well, it was actually at Carolina Speedway on Friday night is what my race chasing was limited to this week, because I had some other things on Saturday that necessitated my attention, so I didn't get to go anywhere else. But I was at Carolina Speedway on Friday night. It was great to see Ross Bales take home not only the NDRA Roadshow late model win, but also the NDRA Track Championship at Carolina for this year. Ross is a strong young competitor and has had kind of a mixed bag of lady luck this season, but managed to take home the championship and certainly look good on Friday night. So very pleased to see that, and some good racing on Friday night as well. Just a beautiful night to be at the racetrack, and Carolina's only got a couple of shows left, and of course on October the 4th, I believe it is, or 5th, whichever that Friday is, I think it's the 4th, we got the combined sprint car show with USCS and the RDC. That should be a lot of fun.
That it will be, and I'll be there along with you to call the action that night for the combined USCS-URC show. And speaking of the USCS, they were in action over the weekend. My normal series as far as the news coverage is concerned, the United Sprint Car Series in action in Hohenwald, Tennessee at the Tennessee National Raceway, and Anthony Nicholson going to victory lane for the 4th time in his career in USCS competition, and 2 in a row now on the season after winning the series' most recent visit out in Toccoa, Georgia. Backed it up with another win at Tennessee National. He's stomped the field, started from the pole position, and led all 30 laps. He beat out 10-time USCS champion Terry Gray, who started outside the front row, so the top 2 starters finished exactly where they started. Tim Crawley running well, finishing in 3rd place. Derek Hagar, the national points leader, in 4th, and Justin Webb rounding out the top 5 in that one at Tennessee National. The United Sprint Car Series is going to be in action for a 2-day show this weekend at New Sonoya Raceway in Georgia before we get set for the Carolina weekend. Going to be at Carolina Speedway, as you said, Tom, in Gastonia on October the 4th. Just going to be a huge night of short track and dirt track racing for the USCS and the URC. We're projecting possibly as many as 40 cars coming out for this event on October the 4th. And DJ Everett, I want to bring you into this discussion as well, since the USCS was formerly your series as well. You were the lead commentator before I came onto the scene, and just as it was in 2009, this combined show with the USCS and URC going to be one for the ages, and we're not going to know who's going to be able to win this race until the green flag falls.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and Jacob, boy, things have changed. The last time I was the announcer for the USCS was back in 2009, and Terry Gray was just mopping it all up back then, but now, you know, we got Tim Crawley back on the USCS schedule after doing the ASCS national circuit. Tim Crawley back with the USCS, so he's given Terry Gray some competition. You mentioned Anthony Nicholson. You know, Anthony Nicholson, he's no slouch. He comes from that West Tennessee, that Memphis, Tennessee area where sprint car racing is a hotbed. You know, of course, that's where Terry Gray was from, and also a familiar name in the sprint car scene known as the Swindells. Jeff and Sammy are in that area as well. So tough circuit there in the Memphis, Tennessee area, and you know, Anthony Nicholson has had some has had some people to look up to as he was growing up, and you know, and he's come around to be one of the best drivers in the USCS now.
Certainly that he has. He's certainly parlayed it into the first multi-win season of his career. The first time he's gotten 2 wins in a single season. So Nicholson really coming into his own finally, and not to mention going back-to-back against some of the biggest names in the series. So it'll be very interesting to see how things unfold as we get closer to the big October 4th show, the Carolina Sprint Car Nationals. But that wasn't the only short track action we were race chasing over the weekend. I was out in Kingsport, Tennessee at Robert Presley's Kingsport Speedway for the United Auto Racing Association UARA Stars Series Model City 150. Lacking a little bit on car count, some fans would say, but no shortage of excitement. The 12 cars that took the green flag were some of the strongest in the Southeast for the United Auto Racing Association, and a very exciting show characterized by a local driver, Krez Van Dyke, sitting on the pole and leading early. the championship leader, Dylan Bassett, having to fight his way from the back of the field to lead it. He would end up leading 75 laps, and a skirmish involving two of the rookies of the series, Chandler Levan and Garrett Jones, that resulted nearly in some confrontation on pit road. But when all was said and done, for the second time in a row, even after a 2-month drought, and the second time this season, Dylan Bassett, Sparkplug as he's known on the tour, ends the night in victory lane, wins at Kingsport, extends his championship lead over Garrett Campbell, and marches closer to unseating Travis Swaim for the 2013 UARA Championship. Swaim, the defending champion, finished fourth and had a very tough night, but for Dylan Bassett, it was a jubilant celebration in victory lane, and we caught up with him following the event.
Victory Lane was the place to be tonight after starting ninth. Dylan Bassett, Sparkplug as he's known, a winner for the second race in a row on the UARA Stars Tour. Dylan, you extend your points lead tonight. An incredible drive from near the back of the field to Victory Lane. Talk about your night and how you got from the back to the front.
First, we had a really, really good race car. Can't thank Seth and Jason enough. You know, they worked their butts off all week in the shop. They gave me an unbelievable race car. Qualifying has been our weak point all season, and even some last season. You know, we still got to work on that, but qualified ninth, and I bet a lot of people just kind of blew us over. We had a really good race car, but qualifying showed none of that. But we knew when race time came around, we were going to be pretty spot on, and just after that, I just picked them off one by one, tried to save, and just we saved enough, and it just showed there at the end.
How big was the tire management during the Model City 150 tonight? We heard it talked about over the radios all night, but how tough was it to manage your tires during the course of the 150 laps?
That was tough, but here I think is saving brakes is more tough than saving tires. I feel like you can have a car which can burn tires off easier than it can lose brakes. But it's just a combination here. You have to keep both under the car, and that's keeping brakes on it was harder for us, I feel like. We have really good brakes, but just having to brake so much here is very critical, and you just got to be able to save them. And I think we might have just saved a little more than the second place car. Can't really tell where he was at, but had a really, really good race car, and I just can't thank him enough.
2 wins in a row, albeit about 2 months between those last 2 wins, and now you're going straight to Caraway next weekend. You've got the momentum. What do you think your chances are as you look to extend your championship lead even further?
Yeah, like we said, we got momentum. I think we have a really, really good chance, you know, just got to keep our head on straight, focus one day at a time, and it'll all work itself out.
He's focused, and he is still the UARA points leader. The winner tonight of the Model City 150 at Kingsport, Dylan Bassett.
And Bassett going to look to continue his march and go for 3 wins in a row this weekend as the UARA travels to Caraway Speedway this Saturday night. And Tom, I want to talk to you about this real quickly. Dylan Bassett, last year, it took him a little while to land on his feet, but once he did, he really found a rhythm in these UARA cars, and this year he's parlayed it into the points lead and is really looking like a front runner for the season championship.
Well, I'm going to tell you, as you know, and I'm sure even a lot of the folks in our audience who are listening understand too, that it takes more than just a driver to be successful in this sport. And one of the things that's really helped Sparkplug this year, by his own admission, Seth Smith, who was actually in the organization last year, I believe as a car chief, is now Dylan's crew chief. And I've known Seth a while, and Seth and his twin brother Derek both come from a racing family, racing background from up north, and down here in the south now. And Seth has just done a phenomenal job communicating with Dylan and really giving him race cars that are consistently fast everywhere they go. And, you know, I'm really happy for Dylan, and you know, Ronnie Jr. is they're just such a humble family, and really, really nice people, and nice kids and good racers. So it really, it's been a great year for Dylan, and I think one of the biggest contributing factors to that has been been Seth's influence both on the track and, and off. And I hope it continues for them. And of course, that series is, as you now know in person, that series is full of young talent, and it's just amazing that any one team can dominate the series in the way that Bassett Racing has been able to for a couple of years, because there's just a lot of really talented racers that you would can win a race on any given weekend, and that race coming up at Caraway is going to be very exciting.
That it will be, and we'll look to see if Dylan Bassett can make it 3 straight on the UARA Tour. But for now, we're going to take a pit stop here on Motorsports Madness. When we come back, we'll talk the triple header from the Windy City. It's the NASCAR, Sprint Cup, Nationwide, and Camping World Truck Series Tours from Chicagoland when we come back to Motorsports Madness on Speed77 Radio, powered by Race Chaser Online. We are your home for motorsports.
Packers,
Vikings,
Red State,
Blue State.
We come from different places.
Uptown,
Downtown.
We come to different conclusions.
half empty,
Half full.
But no matter how different we are, we're all connected, and we can all make a difference. That's why United Way brings people, expertise, and resources together to improve the education, income, and health of our communities, the building blocks for a better life. When we live united, our efforts, magnified by others, add up to real change. Children succeed in school, families gain financial stability, the health of our neighbors improves, and suddenly, so do our communities. But real change won't happen without you.
Live united.
So let's look beyond our differences.
Live united.
One by one, let's make a difference. Let's reach out a hand to one and influence the condition of all.
Live united.
Give, advocate, volunteer. Live United. Sign up today at liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
I knew some people would question it. I knew some people wouldn't approve. It's not just a number. It's a symbol for a great man who did great things. I don't want to erase that. I want to add to it. And I want to make my own name. I knew it wouldn't be easy. And that's why I wanted it.
Austin Dillon with a checkered flag.
Why me?
Why me?
I won Daytona last year.
I won Nationwide.
I did beat Jimmy Johnson.
I won Vegas.
I won Richmond.
I'm good with people.
I'm from Wisconsin.
I'm loyal.
I like animals.
I'm better looking.
Come on.
I'm a Libra.
There was a cat in a tree and I got him out.
So?
What do you think?
Am I on your team?
Choose wisely. The all-new 2013 NASCAR Fantasy Live. Play today at NASCAR.com.
I'm feeling a connection here.
You're listening to WSPD 77.1. This is Speed 77 Radio, your home for motorsports. Welcome back to Motorsports Madness here on Speed 77 Radio, powered by Race Chaser Online, and it's time to go to the national level for the next segment of Motorsports Madness. It's time to talk NASCAR and the Windy City. Camping World Truck Series, Nationwide Series, and Sprint Cup Series were all in action this weekend at Chicagoland Speedway. And boy, for Friday and Saturday, if you were a race fan, there was no story but that of Rowdy Busch. Friday night, during the Camping World Truck Series event, it was the Kyle and Brad show. Kyle Busch and Brad Keselowski combining to lead more than half of the Chicagoland EnjoyIllinois.com 225. Kyle Busch ultimately holding off Brad Keselowski for the win, his 4th of the season, 34th of his Truck Series career, and for Brad Keselowski, a bridesmaid again, his 5th second place finish in the Camping World Truck Series. He continues to search for the win that would make him that elusive winner of all 3 national series. DJ, first I want to turn to you. What is it going to take for Brad Keselowski to break through in the Camping World Truck Series? He's been so close, but he just hasn't had enough.
Well, basically, he's going to have to run a race that Kyle Busch isn't running, because there's nobody stopping Kyle Busch right now when it comes to trucks or nationwide. So, yeah, Brad's been pretty close here in the past, but, you get Rowdy Bush in either one of those series, you got to go through him. And I've said that time, once before, and it's so ever true in both the trucks and the Nationwide Series, especially this past weekend at Chicago.
And Tom, to the Kyle Busch subject, and how many times have we harped on this, but how many times has he given us reason to harp on it? Kyle Busch continues to do things that we look at and go, he shouldn't be able to do this as consistently as he is, week in and week out. But he's proving his case to be behind the wheel in all 3 series, and honestly, he's making it prove his case in the Sprint Cup Series as well, because it seems like every time he runs and gets more track time in the trucks and the Nationwide Series, it only makes him that much better when he hops behind the wheel of that Sprint Cup car. And he finished second in the Cup race on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true of anybody, Jacob. The more, even though the cars are not quite as similar anymore as what they used to be, and of course, the truck obviously is kind of its own animal, but it's still track time, and anytime you can race more than one race, it's to your advantage. But I don't think Kyle Busch needs a lot of seat time to do well in the Cup car. The Cup Series is just that much more competitive, and it really takes a combination of things to be successful on a given day in the Cup Series, whereas Kyle right now, his program in the Truck Series is really superior to about anybody's. And, of course, Joe Gibbs in the Nationwide Series is the same. So I don't think anybody was surprised he won Friday and Saturday. But sure, it definitely helps him on Sunday. And, there again, he had a good start now to the fall season, so to speak. I wouldn't be surprised to see Kyle get a win or two before we're done with these last 10 races, or 9 races, I guess now.
I would have to agree. I would not be surprised, because there's some very good Kyle Busch tracks coming up here before the end of the Sprint Cup schedule. We talked about that Nationwide race, and there was no story but Kyle Busch. He led 195 of 200 laps to go to victory lane in the 300-miler on Saturday. His continuing record in the NASCAR Nationwide Series, now up to 61 career wins. His 10th win of the season in the NASCAR Nationwide Series coming this weekend at Chicagoland. Tom, is there anybody that can stop Kyle Busch in a Nationwide car? And if so, where do you find him?
Inside Kyle Busch's head. It's Kyle Busch. I think that's really, well, look, I mean, you don't want to underestimate, the Penske Racing team, and you've got Regan Smith and Junior's car, and there are some great Nationwide teams. And at one point, it wasn't that long ago that we were talking about Penske Racing's little streak of races where, what was it, 5 different drivers or something like that. It would, just a great streak that they went through. But, Kyle Busch is just good in those cars, and he's good in the trucks. And, you get on a roll, and momentum's a funny thing sometimes. It can make you superhuman for a while. And then all it takes is a mistake on your part or a blown motor or some freak thing to happen, and you lose the momentum, and then you don't get it back for a few races. So I don't want to make too much out of this, but certainly, Kyle Busch has been dominant in Nationwide for how many years now? But keep in mind, he's now back in Joe Gibbs' equipment, and Joe Gibbs' equipment has been dominant in Nationwide for a lot of years and been, the cars to beat. So, all of the guys that have driven Joe Gibbs' equipment over the last, several years have all run up front and run for wins and or won races. So I don't want to make too much out of it, but it's just a little easier for someone like Kyle to get down there, and be dominant. And yes, here lately, he's got the hot hand. We'll see how long it continues.
And now we talk about the big show, the Sprint Cup Series, and boy, this was a soggy show, because Sunday afternoon, the rains came, and they stayed in a big way. 5.5 hour rain delay at lap 109 halted the race and turned Chicagoland into the first night race of the chase. And we talked about Joe Gibbs Racing and their strength. We talked about the fact that Kyle Busch finished second. We did not talk about the driver that beat him. And that was Matt Kenseth, who got a push from Kevin Harvick on a late race restart, gets by his teammate, and then holds his teammate off in a big way to notch his 4th win this season on a 1.5-mile racetrack, 6th win on the season for the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series. That's more than anybody. And he extends his points lead that was 3 coming in after the chase reset to 8 over his teammate Kyle Busch and 11 over his over his competitor Jimmy Johnson. DJ, they finished 1, 2, and 5 at Chicagoland this weekend. Are the 3 on top of the standings, Kenseth, Busch, and Johnson, the 3 that we have to worry about all the way to Homestead?
I think it's kind of too early to tell right now, Jacob, because if you look throughout that whole finish, the standings there, we got 11 of the 13 chase drivers that finished in the top 16. Of course, Dale Jr. and Joey Logano having their problems. They were mired back in 35th, 37th. And we talked about this on last week's show. These chase drivers find a way at the end of these chase races to get their cars near the front. The cream always rises to the top near the end of these races in the chase races. I think it's too early to tell right now. Kurt Busch, you guys are big on Kurt Busch. He finished 4th. He's in the chase. Let's talk about Jimmy Johnson and Jeff Gordon, as a matter of fact. They both had problems early on in this race, and they rallied back to a 5th and 6th place finish. Kudos to those guys for digging deep and digging hard throughout most of this race. So, no, it's kind of too early to tell right now. This is only the first race in the chase, Jacob. A lot of those chase drivers finished up top.
That they did, 10 in the top 14. And Tom, I'm going to turn to you here because not only did we see a great race in Chicagoland, we also saw a lot of controversy before we even put the race on the track on Sunday in the form of the announcement Friday afternoon before qualifying that Jeff Gordon was being added as a 13th driver to the chase for the championship to basically, as much as NASCAR could, rectify the wrong they felt was made by all the circumstances that played out at Richmond. My question to you is, was it a good decision to add Jeff Gordon to the chase? And what do you think his chances are? He really proved a lot by rallying back from a lap down to finish in the top 10 Sunday night.
Well, I wonder if he would have won the race. I wonder how many people would have thought that was a good decision. I think it was the only decision. At the end of the day, once we had the audio get leaked out from that happened between the Logano and David Gilliland teams, it just became a muddy mess. I mean, NASCAR, people, it's popular to bash NASCAR, and I probably do my share of it too. And sometimes NASCAR does things that we don't agree with. None of us pure race fans really enjoy debris cautions, and you always hope that there's actually debris. And but the truth is that in this position, NASCAR was left holding the bag, and they had to do something. It was a PR nightmare. The only fair thing to do is to take the only other driver that was really adversely affected by all the nonsense, which was Jeff Gordon. And I don't want to hear anybody talk about Ryan Truex because he's part of Michael Waltrip. If you were going to leave Clint Boyer in there, who started the whole thing with his spin, and I'm just not going to entertain thoughts that was an accident. It was done on purpose. And if you're going to leave him in there, you've got to also put Jeff Gordon in. And very frankly, I think Jeff justified his position by having the good run. But even if he hadn't, yes. And then here was the interesting part though, Jacob and DJ. They then rewrote, or actually wrote a new rule about what's acceptable and what's not. And I read the rule 3 times. And I think it would have been easier just to write a rule that says, stop playing games or we'll get you. Instead, they wrote this long rule with all of these fancy lawyer words in it. And I just wonder how you define race to 100% of your ability. DJ, you're a racer. Does this mean we can't save tires anymore?
Yeah, I heard about that same rule, Tom, and Yeah, it is kind of funny, but Jacob, you and I talked about this earlier in the week as well. This thing that went down in Richmond about manipulating finishing positions, manipulating the winner. It wouldn't surprise us, Jacob. Like I said, you and I talked about this. It wouldn't surprise us if NASCAR is going to say, you know what? If you guys are going to play this way, the heck with the chase. Okay, we're not going to do this if you guys are going to be, playing this game with us. So it's going to be interesting to see, because now that this went down in Richmond Saturday night, it's going to be interesting to see what future Richmond races are going to look like.
That it most certainly is, and obviously we're going to have to wait till 2014 to find out exactly what that's going to look like, but until then we can sit back and wonder, can't we? It's halfway home here tonight on Motorsports Madness, and we're going to take our halftime caution flag. When we come back, we've got our IndyCar F1 insider Joel Sebastianelli on for another edition of Open Wheel Central as part of Motorsports Madness. That's next on Speed77 Radio, powered by Race Chaser Online. We're your home for motorsports.
I knew some people would question it. I knew some people wouldn't approve. It's not just a number. It's a symbol for a great man who did great things. I don't want to erase that. I want to add to it. And I want to make my own name. I knew it wouldn't be easy, and that's why I wanted it.
Austin Dillon with a checkered flag.
This year, winning means more, and Kyle Busch would do anything to win. He'd steal a lead on a restart. He'd save an out-of-control race car. He'd get a neck tattoo of himself winning so he'll feel guilty if he loses. He'd even call another driver's house 30 times in a row the night before a race.
Who is this?
Who's this?
If it would help him win, he'd do it. Because Kyle Busch would do anything to win.
For every turn, a twist. For every start, an untimely finish. For every win, someone who loses it. For every number, a nation. For every celebration, a brawl. For every split second, years of work. For every heaven, a hell. For every good old boy, a good old girl. For every curse, a prayer. For every ounce of order, a jug of chaos. For every twist, there's a turn.
You're listening to Speed77 Radio, your home for motorsports. Welcome back to Motorsports Madness here on Speed77 Radio, powered by Race Chaser Online. And it's time for the second half of our broadcast here this evening. And it's Open Wheel Central, and to do that, we've returned our Race Chaser Online Speed77 Open Wheel correspondent, Joel Sebastianelli, to the table with us. Joel, first off, welcome back, and second off, boy, when the open wheel world wants to hit us with news, they certainly hit us in a big way.
Well, in the IZOD IndyCar series, we have a 1 month layoff until Houston, at least 1 month from the last race in Baltimore. So we may as well get a lot of open wheel news to fill us in the time between then. And boy, oh boy, do we have a lot to talk about. Everything happening in the last week or so, it seems.
That is absolutely true, and I want to start off with the biggest piece of news that came down from the IZOD IndyCar Series this week, and that was from Penske Racing announcing that Juan Pablo Montoya will join the team for 2014 to drive the number 2 that has run a partial schedule this season with A.J. Allmendinger. The defection has happened. Juan Pablo Montoya has left Ganassi and gone to the arch rival. And if it didn't give Juan an opportunity to win, which we all know is the reason that he would sign with Roger Penske, boy, it certainly makes for good press.
Oh, it does, and if you want to add on an extra layer to it, Penske and Ganassi have been rivals for as long as the sport and the two teams have been around, it seems. So there's that extra layer added onto it as well. 15 Indianapolis 500 victories for Penske Racing. Helio Castroneves may be a champion this year. Will Power has been runner-up multiple times. This is a very, very strong team, and it will give Juan Pablo Montoya a chance to win. He's only won twice in NASCAR, but in open wheel, we have seen so many flashes of brilliance from him. Don't forget, he won the 2000 Indianapolis 500, won 7 of 20 races in 1999 en route to the kart title, tacked on 3 more races the next year. He belongs in open wheel. If there was any doubt about it when he was leaving, hindsight certainly 2020, going to NASCAR, aside from, maybe a little bit of monetary gain, just not a good move for him at all. Even when he was with McLaren, he performed very well. 3 victories for McLaren. A few more victories with Williams as well back in 2003, won the Italian Grand Prix in 2001. He belongs in the cockpit of an open wheel car. I just hope the time is not too late for him, because open wheel racing, especially on the IndyCar circuit, has really changed since he's been around last time.
That it has, and he said he was going to lean very heavily on his teammates, Helio Castroneves and Will Power, to get up to speed. He said he wasn't worried about the ovals. He knows how to drive them. It's the road courses that he thinks are going to be where he is lacking, and he really gave Helio and Will a lot of credit, as well he should. They've run exceptionally well on the road and street courses over the past couple years, and I can't think of any reason why, if Juan can get up to speed in a hurry, that he won't be an immediate contender for the title next year driving for Roger Penske. And you've got to imagine that's exactly why Roger signed him in the first place.
Of course, I'm sure that even though they don't have a sponsor lined up for him yet, I'm sure that one will come along eventually, because he's somebody, especially in open wheel, that's very marketable. Did very well with Target sponsorship back when he was with Ganassi. He got a little help from the team there, of course. But sponsorship has never been something that Montoya has ever struggled to bring in. I think what's something we need to keep an eye on, though, is his endurance. He's bulked up. He's gone on a bit of the Tony Stewart diet, leaving open-wheel racing nice and thin, and leaving NASCAR a little bit on the heavy side. He's also 37 years old, will be 38 by the time the season concludes next year, which is a little bit old for somebody in open-wheel. Those cars are rigorous in more of a physical fashion, or at least in a different physical fashion, than racing on an oval in NASCAR is. It takes a lot more out of you, especially more so Formula One than IndyCar, but in IndyCar it's certainly going to be a test on his body. I'm really torn on what Juan Pablo Montoya is going to do. It wouldn't shock me to see him rattle off a victory or two, and if AJ Allmendinger can jump in the Penske number 2 machine and contend for the Indianapolis 500 last year, I have no doubts that Juan Pablo Montoya can do it this year, but I just don't know if he's going to be consistent enough, and if he can battle the relearning curve soon enough in order for him to take the title.
And Jacob, I want to make a comment about that Tony Stewart diet. I can attest personally to the Tony Stewart diet. I've kind of bulked up myself ever since I started racing my Hornet.
I was just getting ready to say, DJ, you usually have the food reference in the bag, but I think Joel actually beat you to it tonight.
He sure did, but I do want to say the cookies and cream milkshake from Chick-fil-A was very, very good tonight.
There we go. Now we're talking.
Yeah,
but to get back on the open
you gotta
wheel
love
subject,
the soda
though,
cookies. Gotta love the soda cookies.
I'm not even going to get started on that one. To get back to the open wheel subject, though, Joel, a little bit more Eyes-Out IndyCar news came down the pipeline over the weekend as well, in the form that Baltimore would not be returning to the 2014 schedule, citing some scheduling and money issues as the reasoning. I know this doesn't come as a great surprise to those of us who follow the series, but I know the drivers expressed a lot of disappointment. They loved the Baltimore circuit, and they're very disappointed that it's not going to be back in 2014.
There is universal disappointment from everybody, I think. The drivers loved it, fans loved it, the crowd. Actually, they bring in one of the biggest crowds, second I believe only to Long Beach, in all of IndyCar as far as those street courses go. So people love the race even in Baltimore. It's mainly a scheduling thing. First of all, IndyCar, in theory, would like the season to end around Labor Day, and this race has fallen around Labor Day each of the years that it's been run. In 2014 on Labor Day weekend, there's going to be the Navy football game that's going to be taking place at M&T Bank Stadium against Ohio State. The race actually uses the parking lot for that stadium, which, if you don't know, is where the Baltimore Ravens play. And it also goes around Camden Yards as well. There's going to be an American Legion convention there in 2015. So if there's any silver lining in it, I don't think that this race is permanently canceled. I just don't think that it's going to happen in 2014 or 2015. All of the stories, the IndyCar press releases, they all say that the race is off for 14 and 15. I think there's going to be enough clamoring for it that this race is eventually going to come back. I certainly hope it does, because it's one of the races I look forward to every single year, as I think most fans and drivers do in the IZOD IndyCar series.
And I know I was looking forward to it being back on the schedule as well for next season. Obviously, we do have to wait at least 2 years for that return. One more bit of open wheel news coming down the pipeline, and that was the confirmation of everything that we'd all suspected, and I believe you even alluded to on the show last Tuesday. But Kimi Räikkönen announcing that he will officially be joining Ferrari once again for the 2014 season at the very least. For Räikkönen, a lateral move, or do you foresee great things out of the Finn just as he did in his first stint with Ferrari?
I see some ups and I see some downs. Whenever you have two high-profile guys teamed against each other like this, it's bound to create some tension. Ferrari is always been one of the top teams in Formula One royalty, you could say, but they haven't had two champions racing as teammates alongside each other since 1953. You have to go back to 1953 when Alberto Ascari and Giuseppe Farina raced against each other as teammates for the Scuderia. So there's bound to be some tension between the two, especially since Kimi Räikkönen's going to want to do things his way. Alonso's been at Ferrari for certainly a longer tenure than Räikkönen has, at least when you take into account the last few years. Neither one of them is going to want to bold, and it's going to create a headache. Felipe Massa actually said the other day that he expects it to create a headache for Ferrari. I don't see it going any other way, but if nothing else, even if neither of them takes the title, Felipe Massa was not getting it done at Ferrari ever since his near-fatal incident in practice a few years ago when the spring from Rubens Barrichello's car actually hit him right in the skull and pierced the visor. Since then, he's looked a little bit tentative. So I think that if nothing else, they're at least going to be able to challenge Red Bull for the Constructors' title, because they should be getting consistent results, both from the Flying Finn and Fernando Alonso.
I'm just amazed, honestly, Joel, that you actually knew who was racing for Ferrari in 1953. That is the stat of the night right there. Way to go, nice work.
Joel is nonetheless the historian. You got to respect a guy like Joel.
No doubt.
And hey, if you want some more stats too, one other thing that you can throw in there, if you count his time at Sauber and with Scuderia Ferrari, Felipe Massa actually has more starts under Ferrari power than anybody in Formula One history. Second in terms of starts with Scuderia Ferrari, he has 132 behind Michael Schumacher's 179.
Yeah. See, now he's starting to show off, Jacob. See, that's what he's doing.
That's very true, and that's why we bring him in. It's because he knows this stuff better than just about anybody else. For Open Wheel Central, that's Joel Sebastianelli. Joel, as always, thank you for your input, and we look forward to being able to talk to you as the season and the series for both IndyCar and Formula One wind down this year. Until the next time.
Thanks a lot for having me on. I appreciate it. See you next week.
We're going to take a commercial break here on Motorsports Madness, and when we come back, we are going to take a visit to the corner. We're going to talk sprint cars, USAC midgets, we've got it all. NASCAR home tracks, you name it, DJ Everett can pull it up from the lava lamps and the recliners. And we might also have a guest to fall in line with our visit to the corner. That's coming up on Motorsports Madness when we come back. You're listening to Speed77 Radio, powered by Race Chaser Online. We are your home for motorsports.
This season, Jimmy Johnson knows that there's nothing more painful than losing. Not running out of fuel on the last lap. Not getting hit in the ear with a frisbee while jogging through the infield. Not getting a paper cut, then making fresh squeezed lemonade. Losing is even more painful than rescuing a baby porcupine from a thorn bush. Raising it as your own. then releasing it back into the wild.
Goodbye, Pricklebear.
Jimmy Johnson knows that if losing didn't hurt, winning wouldn't feel so good.
Oh!
You are round MVP.
Yeah, man. Yo, Drew, I finally got round MVP. Round MVP.
No way. That was some ownage. It's a good thing you got me as your wingman.
Right. You mean when you threw that flash grenade at me?
Whatever, man. Huge round. Seriously, great stuff.
Finally earning round MVP takes determination. So will getting into college. I've got what it takes.
All right, class. I'm going to pass back your tests. And a high score goes to Brian.
Oh, yeah. High score, baby.
We're all good at something. Maybe it's breakdancing or skateboarding or video games. Whatever you're good at, you have the skills to make it happen. And those same skills will help you get to college. Visit knowhowtogo.org to learn what you should be doing right now to prepare for college. Start taking the steps at knowhowtogo.org.
I've got what it takes. So do you.
Brought to you by the American Council on Education, Lumina Foundation, and the Ad Council.
If I had a nickel. If I had a nickel. If I had a nickel for every time I wish my car had a horn. If I had a nickel for every time.
For every lucky charm I have brought to the racetrack.
If I had a nickel
For every wardrobe change I had to make.
Man, if I had a nickel. If I had a nickel for every time I could've, would've, should've.
If you had a Sunoco Rewards credit card, you'd get a nickel for every gallon you pump. Go Sunoco.
Dropping in behind you. Give you just a little tap here. Come on, hit me higher than that. See if I can fake you high. Fake low. Make that to now. Trying to bother me, huh? You're looking a little loose. Time to go to work. See ya. Nighty night.
Every Saturday you wake up and wonder, is this gonna be it? Is this gonna be the day? The day it all clicks. The day you break through. The day you stand out above the rest. The day everyone remembers who you are. The day you stop wondering if you belong here. Is this gonna be the day?
You're listening to WSPD 77.1. This is Speed77 Radio, your home for motorsports. Welcome back to Motorsports Madness here on Speed77 Radio, powered by Race Chaser Online. It's time for our weekly jaunt to the lava lamps, the recliners, the open wheel world. It's DJ's Corner, and I'm sending it to my Boise, Idaho colleague, DJ Everett. DJ, take it away.
All right, Jacob. DJ's Corner. Let's go ahead and crank it up with, first off, the NASCAR K&N West Series in West Tule, Utah. They raced just outside of Salt Lake City last Saturday. And, Jacob, I got to tell you, I don't know how these guys got this race in at Miller Motorsports Park, because as I was driving into Salt Lake City Saturday morning for the Salt City 200, all of Utah was underwater. It was raining like you wouldn't believe. So I don't know how those guys out at Miller Motorsports Park got the race in. But I will tell you this much. The road warrior, we like to call him, Andrew Ranger, picking up the win out there in Utah in the West Series. Greg Pursley second, Dylan Lupton third, Michael Self fourth, Matt Tift fifth. That's your top five right there for the West Series. Okay, now let's transition over to the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour, Riverhead, New York. Ryan Preece, no surprise there, picking up the win. Justin Bonsignor second, Timmy Solomito third, Woody Pitcat fourth, Howie Brody fifth. That is your top five there for the Wheel and Modified Tour over there in Riverhead, New York. Okay, now let's get to sprint car racing, open wheel action. At the Clay County Fair Speedway last Friday night in Spencer, Iowa, Donnie Schatz picking up his 20th World of Outlaw win on the 2013 season. Incredible. Joey Saldana second, Mark Dobmeyer third, Darren Pittman fourth, Jason Sides fifth. Now we go to the next night, Saturday night, Deer Creek Speedway in Minnesota. Matson put it in victory lane, but no, not Kerry. This time it was Ian Matson, brother of Kerry Matson, putting in victory lane for his first career World of Outlaw main event win. Congratulations to Ian Matson, Darren Pittman second, Paul McMahon third, Steve Kinzer fourth, Joey Saldana fifth. There's your top 5. Okay, Jacob, now to the important thing at hand here. The World of Outlaw points battle up top between Darren Pittman and Donnie Schatz. Darren Pittman extended it out even more, just a little bit. He is now 70 points up on second place, Donnie Schatz. Jacob Seaman, give me your thoughts on that. I know you're high on Darren Pittman.
Right now, I am high on Darren Pittman, and Darren Pittman doing what he's got to do, finishing in the top 3 every single race just about, and finishing, more importantly, ahead of Donnie Schatz when it counts. Pittman has got about a half-race lead as far as total points is concerned, but 70 points at 2 points per position is a lot of ground, and barring something absolutely disastrous, I believe my prediction that I made a couple weeks ago going to come true, and Darren Pittman's going to lead from start to finish in the Outlaws this season.
What's even more incredible about that, Jacob, Donnie Schatz picking up his 20th win this year on the World of Outlaw circuit, and he's still in second place. That tells me Darren Pittman is still keeping Donnie Schatz in his gun sights at every race. He's finishing right there near Donnie Schatz. And I tell you what, Darren Pittman could go wire to wire this year in the 2013 World of Outlaw schedule. All right, now let's go to another form of sprint car racing, the USAC National Sprint Cars. We're at Hopstadt, Indiana. And Kevin Thomas Jr. picking up the win. Brady Short second, Brady Bacon third, John Stambro fourth, Kyle Cummins fifth. Okay, here's another tight points battle, Jacob. Last week it was Darlin up on Clausen. Guess what? The points shifted. Clausen now the points leader, just 5 points up on Darlin with just 6 races left in their 2013 season. Jacob, your thoughts on that?
Brian Clausen's making the moves when it counts, and I would not be surprised to not only see this go all the way down to the wire, but maybe even the final lap of the final race. I'm going to put money on Brian Clausen on this one. I think he's going to get it done once again on the USAC side.
And I tell you what, Jacob, it is deja vu all over again for the USAC National Sprint Car Series. As you said, it's going to go right down to the last race of the season, final lap. Last year, that's what happened at Paris, California, because I was there. Those two were battling for the championship, and it did come down to the final race and the final lap when Brian Clausen picked up the 2012 championship for the USAC Sprint Car Series. But this year, it's a different story. Just 5 points up on Double D Dave Darlin. That's going to go right down to the last race of the season, I believe also, Jacob. Now, speaking of Paris, California, the USAC CRA 410 Non-Wing Series was in action here in down in California at Paris Speedway. And Nick Foss, second-generation driver, picked up the win. Mike Spencer second, Damian Gardner third, Bud Kading fourth, Corey Cruzman, your top 5. Damian Gardner has got the points lead. He's looking to he's looking to snatch that 5-in-a-row championship win that Mike Spencer has for the USAC CRA Sprint Car Series. Mike Spencer's going to have to pick it up. He's about 200 points behind Damian Gardner. It looks like may not happen. It looks like Damian Gardner might be your champion this year, but that's just me that's saying that. Okay, now, other sprint car news. North of the border, Ohsweken, Ontario, Canada, held their Canadian Sprint Car Nationals. Bixby, Oklahoma's Shane Stewart picked up the win. Steve Poirier was second. Jason Barney was third. Your top 3 there. That is Shane Stewart's third career Canadian Sprint Car National main event win, $12,000 to him. Now, the final thing I want to talk about is the Salt City 200 at Rocky Mountain Raceways in Salt Lake City, Utah. I was there, Jacob. 200 laps for Wing 360 sprint cars. Now, 4 50-lap segments, okay? And it was a barn burner right from the beginning. We want to congratulate Scotty Allman out of Victoria, British Canada, I should say. I almost said Columbia. Picking up the win. What a barn burner it was between him and Boise, Idaho's Mike Mergudio. The last 20 laps of that race, they were side by side. Unbelievable. Scotty Allman was able to nose out Mike Mergudio for the win. Aaron Pierce out of Indiana was there. He was third. Idaho's Brian Wharf was fourth. And your new 2013 Western Wing Sprint Car Series champion, Johnny Giesler, finished fifth. He put in an incredible drive, Jacob. He was a lap down just at the end of the third segment. He was able to pass then leader Mike Mergudio to get back on the lead lap, and he rallied back to finish fifth. That makes him the 2013 Western Wing Sprint Car Series champion. Now in that race, we had the Hamiltons, 3 generation of Hamiltons, Kenny Hamilton, Davey Hamilton, and Davey Hamilton Junior. And I believe, Jacob, you have a guest on the show. Davey Hamilton Jr. is your guest, Jacob. Is that true?
That is true, and as we go to the phone lines, we want to welcome Davey Hamilton Jr. to Motorsports Madness here this evening. I've got him on the phone line alongside my colleague, Tom Baker. Davey Hamilton Jr., first off, good evening, and welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a great time.
I want to ask you to start off tonight. You were in the Salt City 200 this weekend, racing alongside your dad and your granddad. And I've got to ask, how big was that for you, knowing that all 3 generations of the Hamilton racing family were on track in the same event this weekend? It had to be really, really cool for all of you.
Oh, it was awesome. I've never been able to race my grandpa before. Last year, I've been able to race my dad one time. Unfortunately, though, my dad and my grandpa both ran into some motor issues before lap 50, so they couldn't finish the whole race, where I was able to complete all 200 laps. So it was a cool experience to race both of them. I wish they were both able to finish, but it brought a lot of fans, and it was a cool experience.
I got to tell you, Davey, I was looking at the picture that you had on your Facebook page of the 3 generations, and, you know, it had to be a proud moment for your dad. He and I talked a little bit at the Oswego Classic about the fact that this was coming up, so I know he was excited about it. But your grandpa just had a look on his face. I mean, that just must have been an amazing thing for him to be able to race, not only with his son, but with his grandson as well, and that's just a really neat deal for your family.
Yeah, it sure is. Actually, we showed up to the race with just a spare car, and we weren't even planning on him running until about 15 minutes before first practice. So everybody was everybody was in a hurry to get the car ready to go, get a spare wing on it, and find him a race suit to race the race. He had to use one of my spare helmets, but yeah, we weren't even planning on him running it until about 15 minutes before practice.
That's amazing. That is really cool that was the last-minute situation, and the 3 of you had the chance to run. Talk a little bit about that race, because that was a very unique race. I've never heard of a 200-lap sprint car race, and it was divided into segments. What was it like from a driver's standpoint?
It was really, really cool. That was the first time I've ever done an endurance sprint car race, and definitely was tiring. It definitely took a long time, but it was cool how they split it up. Definitely it gave me time to relax for a little bit, but while those breaks were happening, the team had a struggle to get the car ready. We had some oil issues, so we didn't spend a lot of time being able to sit down and drink and just relax, but it was a cool experience, but I'm hoping to go back next year and do it again.
Well, it sounds like a whole lot of fun, and I think it's a really interesting concept for sprint car racing, and I wonder if we'll see more of that popping up in other places, maybe with some other track series involved. But talk a little bit about your background in racing for those who may be familiar with your dad, of course, but may not be real familiar with you. Talk a little bit about how you got started, and obviously you come from a great racing family, but talk about your career so far and kind of how you've come up the ladder a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've been racing for 12 years now. I started when I was 4 years old, started in go-karts and outlaw karts, and slowly moved my way up. And right now I'm one of the youngest sprint car drivers out there in the 410 series. So it's cool to do that, but right now I'm also working on getting some sponsorship set up to race F2000s, which they are part of the Road to Indy program.
Yes.
It's IndyCars. Yep. And so I'm trying to get with that, and it'd be cool to travel with my dad as he travels with all the IndyCar races. I'd be able to see him a lot more.
Well, that brings up my next question, or basically answers my next question, which was going to be, you certainly have a lot of choices in terms of a career direction or a career path, and I was going to ask you, are you interested in more of the dirt to sprint car, or dirt to NASCAR path, or dirt to, going over to the open wheel path and following the road to Indy, which you answered that question. I think that's great because I just love that Mazda road to Indy. That whole step ladder I think is so cool, and I think that once we hopefully see more teams involved in the Indy Lights series, and get a little bit more, in terms of numbers in that series, I think that's going to make the series below it even more appealing and attractive. And I think open wheel racing, in Indy style open wheel racing, needs that in this country in order to really make a resurgence. So I think it's neat that you're following that path and headed toward Indy cars.
Thank you. Yeah, it'd definitely be awesome if I was able to make it all the way up to IndyCar. And if I was able to do that, the one thing I'd ever wish for is to get my dad back in IndyCar for the Indy 500 where we could race against each other.
Wow, wouldn't that be something? Is that something? I mean, I got the feeling that your dad, I mean, he talked a lot about, with me about his racing and of course the team, and I got the feeling that it isn't that he necessarily has ruled it out, but I'm sure it's probably very tough to be a team owner and a driver, especially at Indy, because there's just so much going on and so much to do. I would imagine there's a lot to wearing the owner's hat, and obviously there is the driver's hat as well.
Yeah. But as I said, I wish my dad I honestly think my dad will definitely show up in IndyCar here soon again.
Good.
Yeah. So
that would be awesome. He's certainly he's been a favorite of a lot of ours from the short track open wheel fan base for a long time, and really missed seeing him out on the track, and was thrilled to be able to actually watch him race again at the Classic this year and get a chance to rekindle my friendship with him, and talk to him again. And it was interesting how he had a wing element break in the super modified that put him out of the Classic, and we kind of were remarking about how ironic it is that they've really become mini Indy cars now. We're talking about aerodynamics and all of that in the supers and downforce, just like we do in the Indy cars now. So I know he enjoys doing that whenever he gets the chance, and still loves to drive. And I think that it would be an amazing thing to see the two of you in an Indy car together for your first Indy 500. There'd be a lot of people who'd be pretty emotional about that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I mean, right now I also really want to try to get into a super modified race Classic with my dad too, but he's not comfortable with me getting in one yet. I have no idea why.
I'm sure Johnny Nicotra is out there listening. I'm sure he'll be pretty excited to hear that. He may have to add a fourth car, but I don't think he'd be opposed to that idea if he thought you might go up and run some races there. So who knows? Maybe in a year or two we might see that. That'd be great. I think you'd really enjoy that.
Yeah, it'd definitely be a cool experience.
Talk about from your standpoint, Davey. I mean, you're headed obviously down the open wheel path. From your point of view, I kind of gave my opinion about it, but what's your opinion, kind of looking at it from the inside, about the road to Indy, and what would you say to the folks who are out there listening who say, well, I don't know, I can't get into some of those lower series, it's a lot of road racing, et cetera, et cetera. What would you say to them from a driver's point of view about why they should be excited about that kind of racing?
Well, the competition and everything right now is very tough, but the big problem is that everything is so expensive, and it's hard to get sponsors and attract sponsors with our sport because of how expensive it is. But everybody's so competitive now, and it just makes it great racing and good battling. But I wish it was a lot cheaper, because there would definitely be a lot more cars in every type of racing.
Well, yeah, and I would agree with that. And I think with a lot of the drivers that grow up racing in our country, they start off in maybe a quarter midget, or a legend or a go-kart, but it just seems like, the whole road racing aspect seems a bit distant to them and maybe not real exciting. But I know that I did an interview with Austin Cindric a few weeks ago, and I watched Austin since he was in the Bandolero cars and went through the Legends, and now he's up into the F2000s, US F2000s, and really doing a great job in his rookie season. And it's neat to see a young man at 14 or 15 or 16 make that choice to follow that path rather than sort of sticking to tradition in the oval tracks. And like I said, I'm excited that you're doing that. I think that's going to be something different, and certainly it would be fun to see you climb the ladder and get up toward the IndyCars in the Indy Light Series.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I mean, that's been my dream ever since I've been a little kid, ever since I knew what the sport really was. But definitely be great. I wish, hopefully the Indy Light Series gets more car count soon, but it'd be great to end up there.
Talk about what it's like just to be around the IndyCar scene. Do you get to go to a lot of you mentioned that you don't get to travel with your dad a whole lot. Do you get to go to a lot of the IndyCar races or no?
I go to every few, and every time I go to an IndyCar race, I would go to every single one if I could, but it interferes with racing and school, and right now the school is not really happy with me of how many days I've been missing so far.
Well, I won't publicly try to talk the homeschool equation into it, but that's always an option.
Yeah, I know. I tried to talk my dad into that, but he definitely was not. He wasn't too up for that.
Yeah, well, certainly, Davey, it's definitely a great opportunity for you to follow in your dad's footsteps, and I know that there were a lot of folks that I talked to who were kind of like, wow, didn't know Davey had a son who was racing, and then I told them how old you were, and everybody's kind of like, wow, that's amazing. Didn't know Davey was that old to have a son that old, and so I think it was really fun for me, and I know for Jacob and DJ as well to be able to give you some time on the show to just to let everybody know, that you're out there and what your plans are. So, we'll just get you out of here with this one last question, which is, of course, the prerequisite shout-out question, and let you thank, your sponsors and the folks that help you out with your racing.
Yeah, I would like to make a huge shout-out to, my dad. He's definitely, without him, I wouldn't have anything. And one of my main sponsors is Royal Purple and Hewlett Packard, which they give me so much right now, and I just can't thank them enough.
Well, you're doing a great job, and certainly did a good job on the show here tonight. We've been glad to spend a few minutes with you, and hopefully this will just be the first of many repeat visits here to the Motorsports Madness show for you, Davey, and we wish you the best of luck with the rest of the season and all that you've got coming up in your career, because we have the feeling we're going to be watching you on TV quite a bit down the road.
Thank you. That means a lot. Yeah, I hope I could be on the show once again. And thanks for the talk.
You got it. That's Davey Hamilton Junior, and of course, Davey Senior, just a true class act and somebody who's been so important to not only West Coast super modified racing, but super modified racing in general, and IndyCars as well, and just been a positive influence and role model on so many people. So definitely happy to talk to Davey Junior. And Jacob, I got to tell you, it's really been. This has been a very quick show, and it's been an amazing show, and I do want to, if I could, just have a minute. I got a little bit of a scoop here for our audience. If we could just go back to the Truck Series for a moment. Just saw a little bit of a breaking news announcement on Facebook. John Hunter Nemechek is going to make his NASCAR Truck Series debut at Martinsville in October, and I think that's pretty darn cool. John's a fine young man and a really talented young racer, so I think it's going to be neat to watch him in the Truck Series.
I agree. I think it's going to be absolutely neat to watch John in the Truck Series. And Tom, as we wrap this show up tonight, want to thank you for helping out, sitting down with talking to Davey Hamilton Jr. tonight. Thank you for your analysis as always. And I also want to throw it back out to the West Coast to say thank you to DJ Everett for joining us again tonight on Motorsports Madness. DJ, it's been another exciting night, and I look forward to it again on Thursday night with you.
Yes, indeed, Jacob. And Thursday night we got plenty more to talk about. We got some more open wheel stuff we can talk about then as well.
That we do, and until then, for all of us at Speed77 Radio, I'm Jacob Seelman. They're DJ Everett and Tom Baker, and we, along with our entire crew, will see you next time on Motorsports Madness. It's Thursday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. Until then, race fans, keep it up on the cushion, but keep it off the wall until we meet again. So long, folks.